people who are not in this world have a connection to the world of developmental disabilities and housing issues. I don't think they have a clue about how hard it is to find appropriate living situations.
The Kelsey is an organization named for my cousin Kelsey, who had multiple significant disabilities. The Kelsey's work really began over 4 years ago when I saw that Kelsey, who was my same age, was really struggling to figure out where her housing was going to be in the community and where she was going to live and what support she was going to have and how limited her options were.
We knew that, smart, informed, passionate individuals were having quality conversations about the issue of disability housing, but that these conversations were happening in silos. So parents were speaking exclusively to other parents. Affordable housers were speaking exclusively to other affordable housers, self-advocates only to other self-advocates, so on and so forth. So we just wanted to come up with a way that we could bring all these folks together from all different sectors.
What we've been working on recently is a project funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative called Together We Can Do More. And that process is really about bringing together all of the key stakeholders across the Bay Area who are working on in sectors and industries and areas of expertise that are related to or directly a part of disability inclusive housing, and getting all those individuals together to help define what really is the challenge of disability housing and why don't we have enough, and then what are the interventions that we can do to overcome that challenge.
Well, these types of convenings are really important to create conversations across sectors with people who are living with a disability, people who are living in various types of settings. They might be in the family home, they might be already in the community, but in a place that isn't working for them or is working for them. They might be in an affordable housing or supportive housing setting. And then also folks from professional disciplines that can help envision a better future in terms of inclusive housing for all Californians.
People with all abilities need to be at the table of designing what an individual person would like to live in, or where they would like to live in, rather than have someone else decide for them.
Amazing to see people from all different areas of expertise and experiences come together and try to solve a problem that affects everybody in different ways. And that's really unique to have people who have housing expertise, who have disabilities, have relationships with people with disabilities, or are new to the topic totally, but come at it from their own angle or own perspective, and see how you put all those skill sets together to try to come up with some really unique solutions.
Our first workshop was titled Scoping the Problem, and our goal with this workshop was to really define what disability housing means. So often we hear, we need more housing, but why do we need more housing? What challenges are preventing more housing from being built? What opportunities are available to create more housing?
My name is Isaac Haney Owens, and I am here because I've had firsthand experience of how long it takes to get housing and how long it takes to get done, finally get into the unit. And I'm a Golden Gate Regional Center board member.
I work at a co-living operator called Common. We build high-density apartments with middle-income price points.
I'm Sarah of the Regional Advisory Committee on Developmental Disabilities with the Board of Prosper Area Counties.
I'm the supported living specialist.
I'm Chief of Staff with Supervisor Norman Yee.
The Executive Director of Integrated Community Services.
CEO at the ARC San Francisco. I specialize in apartment financing.
I am a parent.
Because the cost of living is going up, that these people are forced to have to move to another area, and then they have to work for another agency that does the same work, and then they get somebody that we lost because of the cost of living here.
So we can say we need to advocate for more funding for affordable housing, but if we're not also advocating for funding for the support services, for funding for the regional center system, for all of those things, we can have all the housing in the world, but we still are not paying our staff appropriately at either setting, the regional center or the service providers.
With the parent communities, when parents are like, oh my God, we have to create a community, it's like, well, you need to look at the lived experiences from people who have actually been in those kinds of housing environments that you're talking about, because they will tell you that it doesn't matter how beautiful the house is and whether it has swimming pools and gardens, if they're not allowed to get up in the middle of the night and microwave themselves dinner, and they're not allowed to have their friends over, and they are forced to go on outings with everybody whenever it's scheduled, then that's not actually an intentional and inclusive housing community.
The few folks we serve, they don't really want to live with other people with disabilities. They went to special ed. They go to a day service or they do a day activity that they perceive as segregated.
And our next round of workshops will be about planning for the next steps. So knowing the problem, aligning the resources, and then planning for, okay, how are we actually going to implement on these ideas and interventions, and who's going to implement them in what time frames.
So for our second workshop, Aligning Resources, we decided to set it up World Cafe style, where we will be bringing in specialists or kind of experts in their field, if you will. We're calling them hosts for the purpose of the workshop. These hosts come from a variety of different sectors. So we have communication specialists, impact investors, affordable housing experts, city supportive housing staff.
I work for the City of San Francisco. I'm a project manager with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, and I am on a team specifically that works on large-scale public-private development projects.
So the first thing that we talked about was conveying to developers that DD folks are good neighbors and that there is a lot of services and support that comes along with bringing those folks into your community, and support and accountability as well.
With Wells Fargo, and we have affordable housing group there. We provide construction loans and term loans. We invest in tax credits, low income, and new markets. Our group does nothing but affordable housing, so that's a big focus of the bank. I find these discussions very interesting just because I think there's still part of my brain that works kind of on the development side and likes to think of entrepreneurial ways to come up with new sources and figure out deals and everything. We haven't seen a lot of projects with DD units recently.
I have definitely deep experience in kind of trying to bring together a very wide range of stakeholders that have really specific different kind of dogs in the fight, but want to come together to a common solution, and maybe are approaching an issue differently, but know that we want to reach the same audience. We want to make sure that we're kind of combining resources to make sure we're being as effective as possible.
If you want to get into adaptive, difficult to solve side of things, I mean, for me, there's a profound question about our values as a country. We're constantly told that we don't have the resources, and I think it's utter bullshit.
We need to figure out how to get more money. That's basically what it all comes down to.
We would be able to develop more housing for people with disabilities, physical, intellectual, developmental, if there were dedicated funding sources for those folks.
We need to get legislators to understand that we exist and we have a voice and we are here. We're not just somebody that you just ignore and then ignore and then go on to do other things that will do other things, and you should pass, and the legislators should pass laws that can help us and not just pass laws that they think are just benefit the rest of the world and don't think about us. So we should go to our legislators and tell them that we deserve as much attention as they pay to other people, to other groups.
For us, disability inclusion has a lot more to do with how you design the community and how you connect people and how you build units and how you build common space, and not just about, wide doors and ramps.
If you were not building intentionally to include all types of peoples, people with disabilities, non-disabled people, people with different types of disabilities, categories of disabilities, then you're intentionally excluding out those groups.
We're grateful to have Bay Area residents here today that have a diverse range of housing needs and preferences, and that they've agreed to share their stories and their lives with us today. There's at least one person at each table who's going to be a use case, who's going to share. So we're very grateful. They're going to help us better understand what it means to design inclusive housing models for all people.
I'm rarely home. I travel a lot, so when I come home, I want rest. And what I appreciate about my lifestyle now is I don't have to have a lot. I don't have to have a lot of big space to occupy. Because if you give me more space, that means I'm going to put things around there that becomes an obstacle.
You can afford things collectively that you can't afford individually, obviously. You get interdependence. You get some of the things we're talking about in the design principles. You get those kind of... Sometimes you're freed by interdependence, not restrained by it.
It's private space that you value.
I think we're working on having 2 separate desks so that we can each have our own dedicated area. And having a space to do whatever work you need to is important, and having it be clean and good light is really important.
For me, the activity this morning, it was interesting when we were talking about, the use cases where we had to sort of brainstorm or try to understand, like how specific, different people imagine inclusive community.
So if we're actually designing for people with needs that are on the margins or that needs that are not in the commonplace, what we design for them will work for everyone else.
I actually have a background in working in design, and I left it because I felt like it was so exclusionary, and then I sort of rediscovered that I could be back in the design world when I got engaged in the disability rights activism and advocacy world.
A key part of the Kelsey's mission is not just to ourselves go out and build communities, but also to support systems change and scalable housing models that other disability organizations, housing organizations, advocacy groups, community groups, parent-founded nonprofits, that we're defining new housing models and new inclusive housing strategies that both we can use in our efforts to build inclusive communities, but that we can also open source and share and collaborate with partners who are doing similar work. We're building the first of its kind community that mixes market rate housing and affordable housing and housing for people with disabilities all in one community together.
When I picture where Leo's going to end up, both when and if he decides to live away from us and after we're gone, I see him in a community of people both with and without disabilities who live together and know each other and take care of each other.
We're part of a group of inclusion natives. We grew up in inclusive classrooms, and we've really seen the value that diversity brings to our lives and to the greater communities, and that's something that we are seeking out in our day-to-day life and in our housing.
I'm particularly inspired by this organization's permission to think outside the box, to dream big, to cross the different disciplines and different sectors, from private to public, from families to organizations, housing, services, to try to think of something new to deal with the crisis that we have now, and to build something that will benefit the disability community and benefit all of us. So it's dreaming big, and I want to be part of that dream, and I want to help make it happen.
When you bring all the people from different groups together, it makes it easier to find a solution. You need all the people that are going to make it possible to come together and talk about it. The more we talk about it, the more it gets out there, the more people are going to start thinking about it, and then it's going to cause more people to be more accepting of this idea that people with disabilities can live in your community. They're going to make your community better.